increasing Democratic turnout to win elections. So now, as Denton County Democratic Chair, we're the seventh largest county in the state, but we are the largest county in each election cycle that I've been chair, and I've been chair the past two cycles. We are the largest county in the state to continuously increase Democratic turnout in those two elections. The state of Texas has gone down. The nation has gone in the other direction as well. We outpaced the state in terms of getting Democrats to the polls in the margin between the Democrats and the Republicans. So it's important that we do that. We did that in Denton County by getting organized. And I will say this, nobody from TDP has ever stopped to ask us how we did it. Not only did we do that, but we were number one in 2022 to increase voter registration percentage in the state, number one in the state. And we had enacted a program called Fight Back Register 50, where we got our volunteers to go to 50 doors of people who moved to our county, because we're the fastest growing county in this area. We're the fourth fastest growing county in the nation, and we're between us and Collin are the fastest growing in the North Texas area. And we were able to be number one when we did our Fight Back Register 50 program to getting Democrats registered. And I'm going to say this, not just registrations, but Democrats. We tracked people who came to our county who had previously been registered as Democrats, and we went to their doors. So we hit over 27,000 doors. TDP didn't think we were doing anything significant. We worked with them. They kind of thought what we were doing was crazy, but we still came back number one. And that type of organizational energy is what we need at the state level. Since I've been running and I've been talking to people, I can tell you we have no organizational structure. We simply have none. And what I mean by organizational structure is a plan that we have that will allow us to get our counties working. We flip Texas through our county parties. And going around talking to our county parties, we need help. And the level of help from each county varies. And I believe strongly that all of our county parties and all of our counties need to be worked and engaged, but they're going to be worked and engaged differently according to what they need. So in Denton County, it was a lot like the state of Texas. We were having our own civil war. But in our county, it was more of a generation. For some reason, anybody over 50 didn't feel welcome. I don't know why. That's the backbone of the Democratic Party. That's the backbone of our volunteer base. A lot of those seniors were going to go with me to a PAC, but once I became chair, we all have gotten back together. We worked out our kinks, and it's not easy. And if you're a county chair and if you've been working with Democrats, you know that it is not easy to work with Democrats and to lead them, because we're all passionate and we're all have an opinion. But we were able to work together to increase volunteerism, increase donations, our fundraising. We went from a $20,000 get out the vote to a $200,000 get out the vote in a matter of 7 weeks by doing a targeted fundraising campaign. So raising money is not something that's impossible to do. You just have to be strategic when you do it. Some of you may not know that I'm a lawyer, so I think in a strategic way. And the first thing I'm going to do is stop. I said at one of the caucuses, we're going to stop, drop, and roll, because when you're on fire, that's what we were taught to do. That's exactly what we have to do. We have to stop and create a strategic plan in 4 areas: fundraising, engagement, voter registration, and get out the vote. Those are the 4 legs of the table. And the same people may not be on those strategic plans, because people do things differently. People have different skill sets, but we have to develop that strategic plan. And then we have to get out and we have to work together as one team. I'm always promoting my website because I have a very detailed information on that side about how we've increased in Denton County. We went from doing 50,000 voter contacts to over 150,000. That means phone banking, block walking, mailers. That means paying people. That means increasing our volunteerism. And we've been able to triple our voter contact during the period that I have become chair, because that has been our goal. We had a goal, we established it, and I, as a leader, have been able to keep us focused. And you know that everybody has an opinion about how we're supposed to do, but you got to have a leader that can keep us focused on what our goal is. So that's my brief thing. Patty only gave me about a minute. I know I went a little bit over, but essentially it is time for the state of Texas to get organized and to fight for Texas, because we really don't have a choice. we've got to go in the correct direction, which is not down, but up. Denton County is the only county there's the largest county in Texas that has been doing that. And all of those facets that we need to start increasing turnout and winning, I come and I sit before you as someone who's done that from a position of success. So we talk about fundraising. I have successfully increased fundraising. We talk about engagement. We have instituted engagement around the county. We're bold and we're aggressive, and people want to be a part of that process. So that's my spiel, and thank y'all for listening. Well, I'm going to take it back to you, Patty, and we can start with our questions.
Fantastic. Okay, like I said, we did get a few questions asked in advance. I am going to do my best, actually, instead of maybe going in order that I received them, I'm going to bias towards people who are on the call. The first one I see, we have Rebecca Shukla here today, and she had a question with a little background info, so just bear with me while I read it. Research has shown that a robust follow up program with newly registered voters can make a huge difference in whether or not they actually show up to vote. Without follow up, 1 in 5 of newly registered voters will typically vote. But with good follow up to 2.5 out of 5 will show up. So, given the many laws in Texas making it extremely difficult to register people to vote, let alone collect information for following up with newly registered voters, Delia, what would your plan be to support volunteer deputy voter registrars in collecting information to make follow up with newly registered voters easier?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know about the legalities of things, if that's what you're asking me. What would be my plan to do to take legal information and how much you could do off those cards? But what we did in Denton County to, number one, increase voter registration and then increase turnout is contacts. Now, you're exactly right. Research shows that the more times a person is contacted, we actually think it's between 5 and 7 times a person is you need those many touches to get them to the polls. We try to do that in many different ways when we do our get out the vote. But it all goes down to organizing your precinct. And as we were doing our get out the vote, I'm sorry, our voter registration, we were also organizing our precincts and teaching our precinct chairs how to find those Democrats and engage with them. And it's all about continuously engaging and trying to get those 5 to 7 hits when you have an election coming up. But I think it's very much important to work with other organizations that are registering people, like BETA organizations registering people. If your county doesn't have time to do that, registration is one of those 4 legs on that table that I mentioned, that we have to continuously be registering people. So creating that strategic outreach. I'm not today going to tell you what that solution is, because I believe in putting people at the table to develop that strategic plan. I don't profess to do and to know every single thing. I know how to lead. I know how to bring people to the table to develop that strategy, and I can give you my opinion. We do need to continuously register, and then we need to continuously engage at least 5 times to get people to the polls. So I absolutely agree with that. And I think that we have to utilize our resources better as Democrats and work with agencies that are also registering people.
Great. Thank you, Delia. Let's see, the next question I have, again, I'm just scanning through to look to see, I want to make sure that I address people that are on the call. Um, I think we're going to go to, bear with me, I'm sorry. Gosh, it's funny. Like a lot of the people who submitted questions actually aren't here today. So, you know what? I think let's just pop over to the chat. It looks like Cameron has a message in the chat. Says I asked for an appointment as Randall County Chair last March. The reason is there had to be there had been a chair for several years, and I felt like the county was vulnerable. Do you mean there hadn't been a chair for several years, and so the county was vulnerable? Was that the statement? So, like most new chairs, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing, and I started attending the weekly office hours. I think what we're asking here is, Delia, what will you do to assist and organize and empower county chairs to have a plan and feel like they know what to do, when to do it, and how to be effective in their roles?
Organizing county chairs is so paramount, and it's number one in my list of what we do when we talk about engagement. We already in Denton County are working with other counties. Johnson County, we're going to be working with them, and as I've been going along, and not only just running for chair, but even prior to this, working with county chairs has been a goal of ours because it doesn't do Denton County any good to increase turnout if the state is not moving forward. So what we want to do, and from I speak county party chair language, and I think we actually need a lot of specific mentoring and specific directives to give our county chairs to help them build and engage their county. And that might even include giving them a personal mentor to do that, because there are county chairs that are at very different levels of development in terms of their understanding of developing an organization, developing their outreach, getting their precincts chair spot. It's a big job. It's hard to do when you're in a redder area than in some areas. A lot of it has to do with knowing how to identify the Democrats in your county. But to be specific to your question, I do believe that our county chairs do need specific mentoring and guiding and specific directions on how to build their organization with those four legs: fundraising, engagement, voter registration, get out the vote, and have specific um, areas on how to do that. We get a lot of emails from TDP, and I can tell you that they do try, but that has not been what we've utilized. It's about creating an organizational structure and finding people in spots, putting them in spots, empowering to do what they need to do. But for some counties, it could be, do you guys even have a phone? Can you get a can you get a answering service so that you can develop a presence in the county that sounds professional? For counties, it will be, do you know how to create a presence on social media? Can we help you to do that? But I do believe that county chairs need a lot more hand-on help in developing their organization so that we can increase our engagement and our turnout.
That's great. Thanks. I think next we're going to, Robin Stulak, who is on the call, submitted a question. Robin, would you prefer to just ask it, or do you want me to read what you wrote and then ask your follow up? If you want to just jump in and ask, let's do that.
Yeah, I can go ahead and ask. So I'll ask with the question that I submitted first, and then I had another follow-up question that I just kind of thought of whenever I was originally joining. So my original question was: it is important to you that we are under one team and that you kind of get the county parties together and sort everything out, so that way we have a better infrastructure going forward. How do you plan on actually doing so, and what do you see the direction once we sort of have everybody to the table of actually being able to work together?
So that is a great question. And all I can tell you, and I'm going to tell you a lot in terms of it's hard to say how you do that, but it's about leadership. We have the exact same problems in Denton County that every county party has. There are so many different groups that feel isolated. Everybody has their own interest, and that's what makes Democrats look like America, because we are Big Ten. But that's also not just our strength, but it's our weakness, and it makes us have little different factions, and it is hard to get us into one team. So the first thing I will say is it's about leadership. A lot of things we simply just cannot tolerate anymore. We have to start branding. We are one team. Be one team focused. There's no there. I'm a Black woman who, and no matter how educated we are, we're still at the bottom of every list. So if I wanted to play identity politics, I'm a good person who can do that. But I don't believe we can win doing that. We have to start looking beyond ourselves and start saying we've got to be more inclusive. And it starts with leadership, not tolerating a lot of of us fraying off in different directions. I'll give an example in Denton County. When Hamas did what they did, we got a lot of people who wanted to come and make us do resolutions for Palestine. I am not bringing any of that into our party because it doesn't increase Democratic turnout. It doesn't grow us together as a team. That doesn't mean I don't have an opinion, but we have to stay focused. So one thing I do is we have to create what our vision is, what our mission is, and then we stay focused. And so as people come to me with different issues and different things that they want to fight about, I'm going to direct them back to what is our mission and what is our vision. Our mission and vision is to get Democrats to the polls. What happens in Gaza has nothing to do with getting Democrats to the polls in Denton County. And we stayed focused on that mission despite people's attempts to want to tear us apart and fight about those different issues. And they're all very important, but it doesn't help us get towards our goals. So what I do as a leader is, and I don't believe we have this at TDP right now, is what is our goal? We can't be all things to everyone. So another thing is candidates will want us to do want us to have different events because they think, I'm running for office, the party should do different events. I don't do that. That doesn't increase turnout when you're going to events with the same Democrats. You do those events with clubs, with PACs, with other organizations that create events for candidates to go to. We stay focused on doing what increases turnout because our workforce is volunteer and we can't stretch our volunteers out. So one way that we keep people as one team is we come up with what our goal is. And I think we need to do that with TDP. What is our real goal? To get people elected. How do we do that? We increase turnout all across the state. So if we're not talking about things that matter about turnout, as the leader, I'm going to redirect us to what our goal is.
That's great. Thank you, Delia. Robin, did you have any other follow-up on that, or I'll move on to the next one?
Yes, this is a sort of like another question I have that's just been eating in my mind for a little bit, if that's okay.
Of course.
So one common point that I feel like Texas Democrats in particular really do hammer home is the need for reaching out to the rural areas of Texas, which I don't completely disagree with. But as I put in the chat, I have a map of sort of the voting numbers in the previous election, just based on like every county and everything. And what I notice is that, especially like not even just in the urban areas where there are going to be a big cluster of people. I'm from Houston, so I'm going to have a little more of a bias toward that. But if you look at the suburbs, there are massive amounts of people over there as well. So I'm looking at like Montgomery County, I'm looking at Galveston County, which has about like 200,000 people and not enough Democrats sort of activated over there. So we'll have like 240,000 votes in Montgomery County, and that's not even within the city itself. That's like on like the sort of like broader end of the Houston area, right? So my belief is that I think we need to do more to reach out not just to the rural areas but to the suburbs as well, because that's where the numbers are shown and that's where we see it a lot more heavily skewed for in terms of Republicans, right? So just being in Denton County, I see that your margins were very good here. It's just like it's Republican skew, but it's only by 30,000 votes rather than like 200,000, right? So what would your strategy be in terms of reaching out to the suburban areas of Texas as well?
Well, first, let me just say, and I'm going to say this all night, I believe in creating a strategy. I don't believe that you're going to pick a chair who can tell you they know how to do every single thing. I have a strategist who helped us achieve our success, not only in fundraising and targeting, but in voting registration. Data matters. So I believe we do need to engage rurals, suburbs, as well as our urbans, but they're going to be on different levels. You're exactly right. Some of the areas have more low-hanging fruit. We need Houston to be blue, but we need it to be deep, right? In order to win, Houston can't just say we're blue. They have to be deeply blue. And you have places like Denton County that has suburbs, some rural, and a few urban precincts. We're headed in the right direction, but we may or may not flip. But it's still important that we continue to increase turnout because it affects those statewide ballots. I do think our focus needs to be on those statewide races, because that's how we flip the state, not from the top of the ticket, but the down ballot candidates, who are the ones that are really knocking on those doors and working with the county chairs, and the ones that are increasing our engagement. So I do agree that there are some counties there's more low-hanging fruit, and the way that we approach them is going to be different than the way that we're going to approach some of the rural counties. But all of them need to be engaged. All of them need to be in finding their Democrats. That goes to data. So having good data is going to be very important. I'm very data oriented, even though I'm not the strategist. I have my own ideas. Every time I've been on the ballot, I've been able to increase turnout. But we have strategists that we're going to bring to the table. And from talking to a lot of the SDEC members, a lot of you guys are freaking smart. And so I'm not certain how much you guys are being utilized. From having these phone calls and talking with a lot of you guys have really good ideas. So as we create our teams to create that strategic plan, we're going to be relying on a lot of you guys to volunteer and be part of that process to do that. So I don't know if that answers your question or not. I do think every rural, suburban, and urban all need to be engaged. They each will probably have not probably, but will need to have a different type of engagement, because we need our urban counties to go deep. As Denton County increased turnout, if Houston had an increased turnout, not just been blue, but increased turnout, if Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, Austin, El Paso, if they weren't just blue, but if they actually increased their turnout, particularly from 2018, we could likely have had already a new governor. So, each of them require different strategies, but I do believe that they're all important enough that they've got to be engaged.
It's great. Thanks, Delia. I think for the next question, we're going to go to Karen Wilkerson. Thank you so much for coming early and then coming back when we were ready. I appreciate that. So I'll just read your question out of the chat. Feel free to unmute and ask any follow-up or anything clarifying if necessary. Delia, Karen says, many smaller counties do not have the capability, the money, or the volunteers to do what is necessary to properly organize. What's your plan for the TDP to assist in providing some of those missing pieces? And then she lists some examples, templates for slate cards, local use flyers, professional simple county party websites. I think you talked a little bit about this, about like helping with social media strategy and such, but maybe you can speak a little bit like directly to how you would help them with these efforts.
So as I've talked to some of the county chairs, they actually really do need a lot of guidance, more than just an email coming to them. They need a lot of handholding. I've got some people on this call right now from Denton County, whether I become chair or not, who have already started engaging with other smaller counties to help give them tools to do that. One thing that we're going to share with them, you may have heard it, is we have started what we call the Blue Neighbor Network. And it is something we can specifically give you, as well as teach you to use VAN to target who Democrats are. So one thing I will say that I don't believe you flip Republicans. People may have voted Republican. Maybe you can flip them, but if they say I am a Republican, I believe that they believe the Lord makes them Republican. So we don't spend time engaging Republicans. We have to find our Democrats and find common ground with independents and those that hate both of us to increase turnout. And every county needs to do that. Our Blue Neighbor Network project, which we're actually now sharing, we're going to be sharing that with Johnson County, because they don't have the knowledge and skills right now. But they will, and maybe we're going to have to mentor with county chairs to walk them through the process to increase and to develop a plan with those 4 areas that I mentioned: fundraising, engagement, voter registration, and get out the vote. Each of those 4 areas, every area will be a little different in terms of the county, if it's rural, if it's suburban, or if it's urban. But as being a county chair who didn't have much, if any, help from TDP, but was able to locate people and excite them. I ran on the thing I called identify, engage, and excite. Identify volunteers, identify donors, identify Democrats, engage them, and then excite them to volunteer, donate, or vote. It's you keep it in its simplest form, it has to be done in every type of county. So I do believe that our rules are necessary to continuously increase turnout, whether they flip or not. We still need them increasing turnout because their increased turnout is going to help us affect statewide races. Statewide races cannot be gerrymandered. So we need to increase turnout regardless of what type of county you're in.
Brilliant. Thank you. Actually, Cameron, Carmen, you just put in a question in the chat that is almost the same as somebody who submitted one in advance, but I don't think he was able to make it. So it has to do with filling the vacant county chairs. Carmen says there are 15 counties in the Texas Panhandle, just the Panhandle, who don't have a county chair. What would you do to help fill these vacancies, Delia?
Okay. So that goes under engagement, right? I'm going to stick with the 4 things that I said: fundraising, engagement, voter registration, get out the vote. Under engagement, how do we identify, engage, and excite Democrats to want to take on leadership? That goes back to data. We've got to have the right data in those areas to identify who the Dems are, some people have filled out, have been engaged, they've been given questions before from other candidates, and it may still be in van. People saying, I want to volunteer, but it's never been followed up. A lot of counties don't know how to access and identify Democrats. In order to fill those vacant chairs as part of that engagement strategy, which the word engagement is one word, but it is a huge endeavor. It is a huge outreach, and engaging our counties and our county chairs is an aspect of that strategic plan. But in order to engage any county or to find more precinct chairs or even to find county chairs, we have to have the best data. We find the Democrats with the high scores, and when we do what we did in Denton County, we spent our weekends phone banking people and filling precinct chair spots. We're going to have to do the same thing with empty county chair spots. We're going to have to go to that county via van and start locating Dems and start engaging those areas to locate people to get them in those volunteer roles. So data is going to be important, identifying who our Democrats are, and then engaging them, and hopefully we can excite them to volunteer to get those spots filled.
That's great. Carmen, did you have any follow-up on that?
Yes, I appreciate the answer that you gave, Delia. I think that the problem up here in the Panhandle is we are so very red in this area. I'm in Amarillo, and it's the big city here. But in the rural areas, there's just no competition as far as Democratic candidates. Very little competition there. So a lot of the people vote Republican in the primaries. It's very difficult to identify who is Republican and who is Democrat. So that's the biggest thing that I have faced, even in my own county.
That is a big problem, and a lot of people are scared, and a lot of people don't want to put signs up. We face that a lot, and I faced that. Even when fundraising, I found that there were, I'm just going to say, rich white men who were developers didn't want to put they were Democrats but didn't want to come out the closet, right? We have to start doing what we do, things like Sunday Fun Day events. And we do that in Denton County, in one of our biggest cities, Bartonville. It's our reddest city. We had one of the biggest turnout. So leadership has to start being bold, and we have to start. And it's hard, especially if they're voting in the Republican primary. I understand what you're saying, to identify them, because then it's hard to find who's this. But then when you look at your election results, you see that some people voted for the Democrat, at the top of the ticket. So you know that there's some there. And so the question is, how do you find it? You have to start engaging in the community and start being bold. In Denton County, what the Republicans like to do is they like to strangle the resources out of you by making you scared to donate. They like to make you scared to run as a Democrat, make you scared. So you have to start having more of a social media presence, start doing surveys, and that's how you're starting to find them. And then you start doing events, but you've got to be bold. You've got to be bold. The leader has to be bold, and you've got to do more events, and you may possibly need TDP to come out and do some events with you to see how you can just start getting names. And it may be a successful year will go from 20 Democratic volunteers in the Panhandle to by the end of the year we have 60. That might be successful in 1 year, and then you keep building, keep building your email base, keep building your social media contacts, your social media base, and you just keep pecking away. But you do have to be bold, and you do have to engage. I will tell you that I was in Dallas in the 90s when it was ruby red. It was ruby red. I was a lawyer in the 90s. I never fathomed. I mean, I went to SMU, in the 80s with when Reagan was president. I look, and I'm a lot older than I look. Patty and I, we go back. But Dallas flipped, and now Dallas is really, really blue. I would have never thought that Dallas would flip. I've lived through places flipping, and you've just got to start slowly and engaging. And what looks like success for your county will be different than what it looks like for another county.
Thank you for
Great.
that answer. I appreciate that. And we have contacted the County Chair Association and TDP, and we are working together to put some rallies together to see if we are able to draw those people out. So yes, ma'am, we are working on that, but thank you for your answer.
And it may be something as simple as you just put on you just do an ad on your town in your social media that says, hey, Democrats are going to meet up, because that's what our Sunday fun days are. I personally don't organize rallies. That's just my own personal thing. Just because I'm concerned about the stuff happening, and it doesn't really, it takes my volunteers away from getting engaging and getting people to thing. I will speak at rallies. I don't particularly put them on, but just doing simple things like saying, hey, if you're progressive or Democrat, we're going to be hanging out at this place, and you're just eating. You're just enjoying donuts with Dems. It doesn't even have to be as difficult as a rally. It could just be like, if any of you have been scared about what's going on and you want to be with some like-minded people, meet us over here, and you just have a Sunday fun day event, or Wednesday out, Taco Tuesday. It doesn't even have to be the level of a rally.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let's see. I think next, Rebecca, you had your hand raised for a moment. Did you still have a question?
I was just going to second what Carmen was saying, is that, I organize in Houston, Harris County, but I've worked with different organizations and had statewide access to van, and had volunteers call from some rural counties saying, they just feel like they're alone there. And I'm like, oh, we'll find a list for you of some other people, and literally going in, and because TDP had taken away scores. So I'm working from voting history. Like the whole county has 15 or 20 Democratic voters. And so it's like, and the county is big, and the person doesn't live in the biggest town in the county. It's a very, very real challenge. Thinking about, I just wanted to say, just from that, like, I don't know. I mean, I know you've done tons more than me, but just from anecdotal experience, it's just such a real experience. And then the people who are there are afraid to be out and be Democrats. They think it'll hurt their business. They think it'll hurt their social life. They think they'll be targeted. It's serious business. I was just wanted to give her some support on that one.
It is serious business. I'm not downplaying it at all. A lot of people don't want to put yard signs in there. But one, I think that things are going to get bad. People are going to start to want other options. I mean, as terrible as that election was, the things that are going to be happening are going to be terrible. But starting to engage, run some ads, and just, I went to the coffee shop, two people showed up. Maybe that's a victory for that day. And then you keep going from there and from there and from there. But leadership has to be bold. If you want to engage your county, you have to be bold. It's nothing that you can give to them. You yourself have to be bold. And then people gravitate towards that, because it is scary, and people do want to help, but we don't have any choice now. We're moving in. Texas, I think, is already a authoritarian state.
Let's see. I think we're going to move on to Taylor Trevino. She put a question in the chat. And I think this speaks a little bit, Delia, to what you were talking about. You know, if two people show up, you've got to just keep speaking to it and identifying with people to keep them coming back. Taylor says, working on explicitly increasing turnout is very important. And at the same time, a lot of people stay home because they don't have faith in Democrats or perhaps the electoral system overall for a variety of reasons. In my opinion, taking a stance on moral issues is as important of a step in building trust between us and potential Dem voters, especially when US government, Democratic administrations are implicated. What are your thoughts, Delia, your thoughts and plans for improving trust between likely voters and the party?
Well, our engagement has to increase. And on votedelia.com, I talk about one team and I talk about we've got to increase engagement with our electeds, even if it's at the local level. We have to be out there talking. Because let me give Rio Grande Valley as an example. That valley was our blue wall in Texas, and then it has flipped. And we were down there a few weeks ago. Everything that this administration is doing is going to devastate that valley. So they absolutely voted against their best interest. We have to take ownership of that because we didn't engage with them. How they believe we were the ones driving up prices. Their health care, most of them don't even have health insurance. Their schools are pretty good, but they're going to be completely defunded because of what's happening in Texas. And so pretty much everything that keeps that area moving, yeah, I believe is under attack by the Republican state administration and also the federal government. But yet they still voted against our interest because we did not do enough engagement and let them know the types of things, let them know on the state level what was happening and what Democrats were fighting to preserve, bringing in Medicaid, expanding Medicaid would tremendously help rural counties. Tremendously, it would help lots of people in that Rio Grande Valley area. But we did not engage them from our elected officials locally, even school board reps to up the ladder. We need more engagement with Democrats and with people in general so that they know what we do stand for. Now, I don't know what you mean by moral issues, but I will tell you what I have learned. And I think this is the lesson we should have taken by now. In 2018, we thought people cared about kids in cages, but they did not. We really thought people would care. We thought people would care George Floyd was choked out by a police officer. We thought people would care women are literally bleeding out in hospital bathrooms and in parking lots because they're not receiving help. We saw they didn't care when Beto ran for governor, and we saw again when they didn't care. But what people did talk about, because I talked with them when I went to the Rio Grande, I wasn't debating. I literally wanted to know, why would you vote this? And I talked to a few people. One was a young Hispanic girl in her 20s, and she's like, I used to vote Democrat, but you guys have gotten so this far, and I don't believe in half the stuff. And so I said, well, do you think Trump is a good businessman? Well, I mean, I would take advice from him. And I said, well, what do you think about his bankruptcies? Well, he's using law. And I was asking these questions not to debate her, but I wanted to know what they were hearing. What are you believing? What's making you motivated? And it came down to people wanted to hear things that helped them improve their ability to achieve the American dream. And those are kitchen table topics. The other thing I will say is I believe in 1968, when Martin Luther King was assassinated, it's because he switched to an economic populist position. When he was trying to show poor whites that it's not blacks and browns that are taking away your ability to achieve the American dream, but it is the 1% and the oligarchs. He switched his message of racial equality to economic equality for all Americans. He expanded his reach and then he was murdered because that is how you increase people to your side. So that's what I believe people are interested in and things that help them achieve the American dream because if you're a rich person, none of these things are truly going to affect you. Honestly, your ability to achieve the American dream, to get up to work and to have success, not just stay above water, but to improve your life is something that we all have in common. And I think it's a way that we increase our tent. And I think it's what motivates people to the polls. And I believe that that's why when those people in the Rio Grande Valley saw Donald Trump, who never has gone to Kroger to buy groceries, stood in front of his mansion with a bunch of groceries, those working people who don't have time to decipher all of our messages, they resonated with that. So I think really those kitchen table topics are what people need to know because our economy is becoming less and less able to be successful. I think it's a sharecropper economy, meaning I believe that we all have the illusion of being able to own the property, but we're really not. And I think when we broaden our appeal to those issues, we're going to be able to increase people who understand what we're fighting for. That's what we used to be, the party of the working people. So I believe that the lessons of the last elections have taught me that people don't, I'm not saying that they don't care, but their own personal self-interest will always weigh more than their ability to step out and to be empathetic with someone else who's suffering. I don't want to see women bleeding out in hospitals, but I would like to be able to afford to put bread on the table for my children. So I think we're going to have to work on that type of messaging to broaden that appeal.
Thanks, Delia. In fact, one of the questions that was submitted in advance from James Turner, I think he may have actually joined now, was exactly on that, was about the kitchen table issues that are most important for the Texas Democratic Party to run on. So thank you for answering that in advance without even me asking the question. And from there, I know Darcy, she's had her hand raised, or they've had their hand raised for quite a minute. So if you want to just jump in and ask your question, we're ready.
Hi there. Thank you for taking my question. I wanted to ask, I represent a very big part in the disability community in general. And what I have been hearing through a lot of my disability community people is usually about how a lot of them could not be able to get access to votes because getting the ability to vote or whatever because of like the whole Republicans trying to convince these disability people to not to vote, or they do their hardest to make it more difficult for that disabled person to vote. So, what will the Democrat chair be able to do to help those disability people to go out and vote?
Well, I'll tell you what we've done in Denton County. That goes under my get out the vote plank, right? There's 4 planks: fundraising, engagement, voter registration, get out the vote. Get out the vote is also a big plank. What we did was we did a lot of you need to it's the beginning of the year, and we did a lot of ads and videos saying it's time for you to fill out your form to get your vote by mail form. And then we did a lot of education on how to do it correctly so that your vote doesn't get thrown out, because we know that they're doing that a lot. So we did a lot of educating on that. And then once we got past that, when we got more into it's getting closer to vote time, we did a lot of information on this is how you can vote and where you can vote. We did literally videos on how to vote, and that helped younger people, like people who just became newly registered. They actually are nervous, when it comes to voting. They have a high anxiety. And so we did videos on this is how you literally vote. That will also include on what you can do if you're disabled and you actually don't want to vote by mail, but you want to vote at the voting location, and you have the ability to go there and have one of the people who work come out and vote with you. I did that once before. I did that with my mom, but we had to increase information to people so that they knew these are your avenues to voting. There's some people who don't want to vote by mail, but if they do, we want to make sure you have a smaller percentage of getting your votes kicked out. And Denton County's numbers in terms of votes that we were able to keep in the Democratic column is higher than the state average, because we actually invested in information to the public on how to do it correctly, to look at the things that you're signing so that they're not kicking it out. And they're still moving now to even make it even more difficult for women. And then the other thing is letting people know if you actually don't want to do it by mail, but you want to come in, what your rights are. Those are specific outreaches. Those are phone calls. Those are part of your phone banking when you're calling people and they're talking to you about that. Those are the messages you're putting on social media. If you're disabled and you vote, you can get curbside voting. You can have somebody come and do this. People need to know what their rights are in each of those in each of your counties and how you can be accessible to voting.
Mm-hmm. And then I just have one more question. What I have also been hearing about some people in the disability community is that how a lot of the Democrat Party has been feeling left out and feeling like they're being less stabilized. So, like people who are on SSI, for an example, who rely on the disability, it's making them more harder and harder to live their daily lives. And also, under the state side of things, Medicaid being defunded and whatever. And they feel like the Democrat Party has not done enough to combat that. What what you would do to help convince the disability community to vote for Democrats again and be able to convince them to go out to vote more and
That,
be able to
that
be more in the community?
I think what you're talking is a lot of what we just talked about. You're talking about kitchen table issues. You're saying people who are on disability feel like they're being stretched thin, they're worried. They are not they believe that the Democratic Party is focused on things that doesn't help them sustain their life. And so that was really the backbone of who we were. And somehow we've allowed oligarchs, we've allowed people who I think Musk got a $300 million contract this weekend, in addition to his other millions of dollars. We've allowed that party to paint us as the party that doesn't care about the working class. And if you do keep up with things that the Biden administration did, they were all about the working class. But we didn't message that. Nobody understands the things that we did to try to cut fees on banking fees, to try to prevent rents from going up more than 5%. The things that the Democratic Party has been focused on. We don't engage with people enough to let them know how, what we're doing and how we need to do that. But it goes to engaging and it goes to what that message is. And again, I believe that you're talking about kitchen table issues. How am I going to sustain myself, and what is the Democratic Party going to do to help?
Mm-hmm. And also that was another thing I was going to ask about too, is about the misinformation, because the Republicans have been the number one source when it comes to spreading misinformation and convincing to vote them. Um, and I feel like the main media has been having a hard time combating that misinformation and also not reporting the message, like you just said earlier, about yeah, I am aware about Joe Biden helping out with the American people with the infrastructure plan and whatever, but the issue is that the news media and the main media and a lot of social media stuff are the they're compressing it into much more drama related issues that a pretty good majority of people don't really give two cares about.
That's exactly right. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. One of my biggest fears, and I told somebody the other day, I said, we're being distracted by a lot of stuff, but a thing that concerned me was whether or not Facebook agreed to no longer fact check. I double majored in economics and journalism, and so I don't even recognize the media today. And I absolutely am fearful that currently, right now, when Trump was inaugurated, we had Facebook guy sitting in the front row. We had the Amazon guy who now is working with the newspaper. When you have the media controlling those outlets, that is extremely dangerous. But again, when you go on votedelia.org and talk about one team and engagement, we have to start engaging with people where they're at. And that means we have to start increasing everything that we do. And we have to, when we build our team and say we're going to increase engagement of this, of our messaging, we've got to start using our podcast people that are progressive, that are leaning toward. We've got to start using the things that children are on. In our county, we use YouTube. We made videos. A lot of people receive their information off of YouTube, not off of the regular network. When I was growing up, you just had 3, 4 channels, right? Now you have the all of the cable access, and people don't even have they're watching TV off of Hulu. So you have to go to where there are to increase that engagement. But as part of what I say engagement, that includes everybody. And it goes back to all of us being one team. All of our elected officials are going to be a big part of increasing engagement. And so I'm really happy to see that right now our elected officials are doing these telephone town halls to try to keep people up with what's going on. This is the first time I've ever seen them do that, and I think they got directives. We've got to get to that in the state of Texas and encourage everybody to start increasing engagement, but meeting people where they're at, because I believe the media is a concern, and I no longer believe in any poll. There is no poll, any poll. The only poll that was correct was the poll that said, I don't know who's going to win, but whoever's going to win is likely going to win all the swing states. Now that's if we all believe the election wasn't stolen, right? We don't want to get into that, but let's presume the election wasn't stolen and he won all the swing states. That's the only poll that was actually correct, was that poll. So I don't really believe in any of that anymore, and I'm very concerned that at the top of all of our media companies is simply one or two people. So you raise a good point. They're not promoting any of it, and the bells right now should be sounding off the alarm on all of journalism.
Yeah, and we also need to get like dark money out of the politics related stuff, or that, or at least combat it to where like they are not going to be afraid of like getting cut off and just working for them and be under their grasp instead of listening to the people, because money blinds people. And that's what I think a lot of politicians have had issues with, because they're only caring about money at this point, and we need to get that out of politics from the Democrat and Republican side.
Yes, a lot of things that we have to work on.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, thank you for answering my question. By the way, hi Robin. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for answering.
Mm-hmm.
So we've only got about 3 minutes left. I want to just open up quickly. Is there anybody who didn't get a chance to raise their hand or put in a chat or send a question in advance that either has a question now or just wants to make a comment? Then on that note, I'll just do a plug for Delia's website, votedelia.org. We have a contact us form. If you think of anything that you need to say, that you want to ask, that you want us to know, we're listening. Get on the web, votedelia.org, and send us a note. Delia, do you want to just wrap up in a couple minutes here?
Sure. I'm so excited by the number of people that showed up today. And if people want one, we'll do another one, because I want to talk to you. And I've been so impressed with the SDEC members and the caucuses that I have been able to talk to. I'm plugging away. So if I haven't gotten to you yet, I am going to get with you. I think there is so much human talent within our own organization that has been untapped. And it's not just about organizing. I'm an organizer and I'm a leader. I know how to come up with a vision. I know how to keep us on that vision. I told you the 4 legs that I want to work on, but there's also other things that you want when you want to pick a state chair. You want somebody who is able to represent Texas and to engage Texas more on the national level. I want to fundraise outside of the state. I want to go to safe blue states like where Patty is, and where they have no fear of what's going on and can't even imagine what it is, and tell those stories about what's happening in Texas. That's what we did in Denton when we were able to raise money for the county party. We went out and we told those stories. And I really don't believe there's anybody running right now that's going to be able to sell that story better than myself. I've been on network TV debating and supporting the Democratic brand against Republicans. And you want a chair that has the ability to do that, to jump in inside out of those type of worlds, to raise the profile of Texas and put it on a more of a national level. We want the national party to stop ignoring Texas the way the TDP ignores rules, right? We ignore the rural counties, and we've got to stop doing that. And my message outside of the state, and I believe we can raise a lot of money and increase our profile, is if you can engage Texas and flip Texas, you can save the rest of the country for a long period of time. If you flip Texas, you can save the country. So I think there is plenty of opportunity to do things, and that is creating that organizational structure, putting people in place, making everybody empowered so that we all are part of this one team process, but also having a leader that has the vision and the boldness to lead Democrats, not only in the party and organizing, but outside of the state of Texas and building our brand. So I hope that we've answered your questions. We're going to be here and we'll let you know if we're going to do another one so that you can have any more questions, because I really enjoyed talking to the SDEC and the caucuses and the people on the ground, because that's how we're going to flip. So thank you guys so much for coming. And I hope that I am earning your vote on our chair race. So thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a great evening.